those designs were never used. I don't know how many properties actually use the designs, but most of them were not, I know that. It would seem to me that those fees should not be included in the assessment. I don't see how anybody benefited from something that wasn't used. I understand that that was part of the, quote, learning curve in the early stages of the program that we had. I think everybody's admitted that there were a number of fits and starts, especially in the first 100 properties. In fact, there was some discussion about this. You folks talked about it back at the October 15th, 2013 meeting about the learning curve. By the way, if you look at the minutes of that meeting, you don't see that discussion, but if you listen to the audio tape, it's there. The learning curve was brought up again at the first meeting in November during the workshop you had. And I feel it would only be fair to consider those engineering costs that were not used and that nobody benefited from to be considered as that learning curve and not be included in the assessment. Thank you.
Is anyone else? Thank you very much. Moving on, staff reports, financial.
Yes, we have 2 invoices. One for Mal's auto and truck repair, which was maintenance for the big white truck. A 2005 GMC C7500, to be technical about it. The other is an invoice received today that I sent out today. I don't know whether any of you had a chance to look at it. We got it this morning. It's from Laughlin Fitzgerald, and it's for their professional services for November regarding benefit assessment appeals. I included, those were actually need to pay, but I also sent out to you the shipment and Goodwin bills for October, so that you could see that the work that they did in fact perform work on our behalf, and they did use the dollars we had prepaid. We should get a little bit more work that was done in November that did pertain to phase 1, and then we'll equalize out what the prepayment was. But I wanted you to see that they are what they did, and the fact that they are not, quote unquote, double charging us for it. And those are all the invoices that we have. Val's truck is for $683.53, and Laughlin Fitzgerald is for $3,006.63, for a total of $3,690.16.
May I have a motion to pay the 2 invoices?
I'll make a motion that we pay the 2 bills, one from Mal's for $683.53, together from Laughlin for the sum of $3,006.63, totaling $3,690.16.
Second.
Does anyone want to see?
Yeah, I'd like to see.
on the Laughlin Fitzgerald, do we have just, is it that an open-ended agreement, we pay whatever it's gonna cost?
Then,
They can just, they can bill us for these expenses. There's no upper limit on how far we wanna go, there's no goal on how far we wanna go on enforcement.
I don't, I do not, this was an arrangement that was made by, the selectmen, and it would not, I would be very surprised if there was a not to exceed number for a legal endeavor representing someone against the lawsuit.
Can't do that.
Especially
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble with that, no. I think there was agreement to hourly rates, and that was the sum total.
Do you know how much we've spent so far for Laughlin and Goodman? Or Laughlin and?
Prior to this, we have spent, well, this year, and there was one prior to that, probably around $10,000. This year, since July 1st, $8,287.70 does not include the $3,000 bill that's there, and there was a small bill in the spring. I have that information in my office, but not here.
That's close enough.
Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving payment of these bills signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I have one other thing, and that is the operating budget report for November. There's nothing particularly unusual about it. We're in pretty good shape all the way around. I imagine that we will exceed the legal counsel line item by the time we get to June. However, I see no instance where we would frankly touch the line item for engineering services. So I do, even going over the one line item for legal counsel, I don't think we would end up exceeding our overall budget. But that's the one to kind of keep an eye out. And this all is if we prevail in the lawsuits, then all these dollars can be requisitioned, and the clean water funds will in fact reimburse us, but not unless we prevail.
And that'll bring these numbers back up. Is that what you're saying? It goes back into the same.
Well, I don't think that you will see it. From what I understand, these things take quite a long time, and it's, my sense of it is that it won't appear in the 2014-2015 budget. I think it will be kind of done off the books sometime in 15-16 if it's done.
It's not even scheduled for until next July. Report.
Motion.
Accept it?
Yes. I'll make a motion to accept the operating budget dated 12/1/2014.
Second that budget.
I have a question.
Yes.
Could you explain again to me the reasoning why we leave off the whole field force?
Because
I know they're all contracted. Tell me.
Because they are clean water funded, so this is an operating budget. This does not reflect clean water funds. Clean water funds are not reflected in the operating budget. so they are not included in this budget.
Okay, I have a little bit of a problem with that. I know that we can be reimbursed, we can apply and we'll get paid, but the fact of the matter is that when it all comes down to the end, someone has to pay for those services. Right now, the town has to pay 25% of those services.
That's right.
Right, so I don't understand why they're not in the operating budget, even if it's only the 25%. Why are they just excluded? I can't get that through my head. I don't think it's right.
The operating budget is set by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. The clean water funding is considered off budget. I understand what you're saying about the 25%. However, that is a bonding issue. I think in this point, I would suggest that you might want to talk to Lisa Carver regarding this, because
Okay.
It's the way it's structured.
I understand the way it's structured, but I also understand in our last go-around with soft costs, we got a bunch of off-budget stuff that in the end, the town is gonna pay virtually 75% of that off-budget stuff, which amounted to $3 million off-budget. So it's not, it's.
But you also have to look at the fact that if you take the basic breakdown of clean water funds is 25, 25, 30. 25, 25, 50, I'm sorry. The first 25% is money that is a grant, that is given to the town, that does not ever have to be paid back.
I understand that totally.
The second 25% is what the town has to pay back.
Right.
In theory, it's a wash.
Okay. So what about the 50% that the homeowner theoretically has to pay? We just forget about that? That just is off budget too?
That's part of
Oh,
the
okay.
clean water funds.
Okay. I won't make an issue, I will talk to Lisa about it. I won't make an issue
Yes, please
about
talk
it.
to Lisa
Because I
about it.
really don't understand it. I can't understand how $1 million can be off budget.
Then I
I'll
would suggest
I'll
you talk
gladly
to
talk to
Lisa.
her, find out. That's my comment.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the report, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Aye. No, opposed.
Oh, opposed, I'm sorry. Robbie? Anything?
Yeah. You know, this is old news, but we've been so busy the last few months, it didn't come up at the meeting, so. The East Point development, you probably read in the newspaper that it was denied. So we won't have to worry about a community maintenance agreement, but, and I don't even know if you followed up with it, but zoning felt that there were just so many outstanding issues and conditions to approve, that they weren't gonna approve it. None the least was the emergency, getting emergency vehicles, you know, up to that area and in there, so.
Did we expend any funds on the
Nope, we got our quotes and that was it, we didn't go any further. But at least it was an exercise on how to kick it off, and next time we have to do it, what we need to do.
May I just comment on that?
Yeah.
I mean, the developer can still come back with a revision. Just because it's been denied doesn't mean that's a permanent denial. I mean, I would expect that the developer will make changes to their plan and come back.
This is the second time that, it'll just keep coming in. We did get a fuss on I didn't send it out because there wasn't anything, unusual about it. Ingham Hill 1 and Meadowwood 1 is finished. It's just that we could put it out to bid, but we don't have phase 2 monies for it. So we could go out to bid 6 weeks later, but we can't award the bid. So that's, we can certainly do that. Meadowwood 2 is just some last pieces of data. The field crew's getting up to me or getting up to Fuss and O'Neill. And that'll be ready. We also added 20 Edwards to that, or we will. Site manager added that. That was someone who was in enforcement. They were given until October 31st. And we weren't obviously going to add them to Fenwood. So we'll add them to phase 2, Meadowwood. George and Stephen and myself, we attended the COPCA meeting, November 14th, and I just wanted to let you know, COPCA's got a website, copca.org, and they put the presentations up. And we've got these really nice presentations, the one from Dr. James O'Donnell from Circa, and that's all about Connecticut Institute Resilience, what they'll do for you. That's really nice. And my loan in McBroom has coastal resilience for wastewater systems. I would make more, but this uses a lot of blue ink. But, I can print them out black and white if you want, we can go look at them. But this is
That's on the
something that.
website?
COPCA, yeah, Connecticut Association of WPCA's, copca.org.
Okay.
And they put all the presentations up for the workshops. But this is something that, and I sent it to the Seawater Committee too, so they'll have it.
Can you put it in our Dropbox by any chance?
Oh, yeah. I'll send you this out, this is nice. Just Maple Avenue stats. We've got off to a slow start, Maple Avenue. We've got 43 outstanding apps. That's like 26%. We sent the final notices out last week, so they are just dribbling in the next few. And the field crew's still working on the soil testing, and they'll be working through December and January. And every time it rains or we get bad weather, it goes to the bottom of the list. So it's gonna take a while to get all the soil testing done and to get all these apps in. The last thing I just want to note is when I put in the schedule for 2015, all the boards are kind of starting at 7 o'clock. So if you want to think of that, the last board that starts at 7:30. If you want to consider moving us up a little bit. That's it.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the Meadowwood, I just happened to run into a Meadowwood citizen this week, and he's asking me about Meadowwood. I was under the impression that we had approval for the funds
We have
for
prior
Meadowwood prior to.
approval, that's just for site investigation. That's all it is. So we don't have the money to actually install systems right now. That's the $15 million for phase 2.
Right, okay, so where do we stand with that money? I thought that was
That's waiting. for
through the
approval.
last,
That's waiting to be signed off. It's on someone's desk up at Deep.
is it deeper actually at the state, the Park Secretary of
I'll
State?
I'll address that in the.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, no other questions.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Robin.
Good evening. How are you? With the Thanksgiving holiday, there's only really been about a week of work days. But we have a number of issues we're keeping track of. We continue to work on not only the long-range planning for phase 2, but as Robbie mentioned, the applications have been coming in slowly for Maple Avenue North. And that affects us in terms of efficiency and keeping these plans moving forward. So it is an issue. If the applications dribble in, it makes it really hard to be efficient about doing the test holes and getting that done quickly. We need to do that so that we can get the contracts. As you noticed, there's not much happening with Fuss and O'Neill right now because we are sort of in between. With regard to the funding, it is okay by the town to move, for our attorneys to move ahead. They are working on it. The process requires that they put a formal loan agreement together. It has to go to the state at several points in the state for approval, and then come back to us. So that is in fact moving along in the process at the moment. So we're pushing on keeping all of that going as we are in between, and until we get that money, we don't have the money for any construction, but we have to keep this preliminary work going so that we'll be able to do that by next summer. With regard to enforcement, I met with John Conway last Monday. He wanted to go over some of the data on appeals in process. Jim Vanoli helped me with that, and he spent some time with us so that he could prepare for those. As Robbie mentioned, we have another person signed in for clean water funds in phase 2, so took one more person off the enforcement list. The joint defense agreement still needs to be done. Basically, Carl and Jim Monopoly have to get together and decide what they're going to agree to. And that hasn't happened yet. Once they do, I think the change can be made fairly quickly. But there are several things that need to go together for enforcement. That's one of them. The Second Amendment to the Health Service Agreement, which you approved already, is not signed yet by CRAD. They would like to have this in place as well. So we need those two things, and we have to review, because so much time has passed, the enforcement letter, make sure that's still appropriate and relevant. And hopefully all of this is going to come together, since this is the last meeting in December, at our first meeting in January, so we can move ahead with that. So still moving on all of those issues. The upgrade standards continue to be just slow, only because so many people have to approve them. Robbie sent a draft of just the changes. After a number of attempts at trying to work some of these issues through, we reverted back to just changes to the leaching system to make this simple, get it done. And those changes were initially suggested by CRAD because we needed to clarify the language in that section. So you can see it's not much. I have sort of an expanded version of Robbie sent that out so you'd have some information. It was just the changes. What I'm going to pass out are the changes in context of the whole leaching section, and probably what I would suggest is that we wait until the next meeting to have everybody's approval and have the whole booklet done so that this gets done properly. It's all going to be done at the same time. We can pass those around that way. So unfortunately, we thought we might be able to do it today. Jim Monopoly's been out for a few days and we need his approval on this. So my suggestion is to table that public hearing until next meeting as well. The personal services agreements I've been working on, and I will cover that under the agenda item. Last Thursday, I went to URI and attended a course on nitrogen and the environment and nitrogen removal and advanced treatment systems. They're a great resource for us and for people in the wastewater industry. So got a lot out of that, and that's been it for the last week.
Does anyone have any questions? I have one question. The upgrade standards, can we go out to bid until these are approved?
That's
Okay,
another issue.
problem.
One of the things we wanted to sort of address, because we were making these changes, is to look at everything else. And one of the issues that came up was the tank size.
Mhm.
And we wanted to standardize that. It became problematic with the public health regulations. So we dropped it and we said, we're okay with what public health code is calling for. When that gets approved, the bid document, the bid book, has to reflect that, so that the contractors know what tanks they're going to be bidding on. So you're absolutely correct. Until we have this in place, that's going to be held. So it's really important to get this done at the next meeting.
that'll give you enough time to go up to bid,
Yeah.
get this stuff going. Okay.
We can still we can get the ad out, that's gonna take a while for the responses. We can put off the actual viewing of the bid book for a little while.
Anyone else? Thank you. Okay. The next item is to schedule a public hearing regarding the proposed supplementary assessments.
Can I speak to this?
Certainly.
First of all, I sent out to everyone on the board, some of you obviously did not need this, but it was easier to send it out to everyone. A copy of the benefit assessment policy adopted by this board in November of 2010. It is what we operate under. It is in many places in this policy, word for word from state statute. It was prepared by Shipman and Goodwin. And this is an FYI for those who had not seen it before. The second thing that I sent out was the checklist and the timeline for activities that were required prior to mailing out billing in May of 2015 for benefit assessment. This is what we follow. And it meets all the requirements of the state statutes on how you do a benefit assessment. The reason that you have 2 agenda items and you have 2 resolutions is one of them is for hard costs, which encompasses approximately 60 properties, mostly Fenwood 1 and Fenwood 2, with some outliers from the last Oyster River East. Those are for hard construction costs only. The second one that you're asked to consider is for soft costs only, and it encompasses 314 properties that were upgraded in phase 1. The reason they're separate is primarily because the software does not accommodate add-ons to existing benefit assessments. And secondly, on advice of counsel. We have been advised by Bruce Chudwick that, and I totally agree with him, this is a cleaner way to do it. It is a supplementary, it falls under the supplementary benefit assessment portion of the statute and should be billed, assessed and billed separately.
Are the soft costs for Fenwood 1 and 2 included in the 314 properties?
No, the people who are getting the hard costs,
Yeah.
think of it over there. Those same people are on the list for soft costs.
Oh, that's what I wanted to know.
Right, there's
Oh, okay,
on the list for
okay.
soft costs, we're
Okay,
not
no, I
combining.
understand.
Yeah, no, you're not combining in any way whatsoever. So what Bruce wanted was a resolution the first first one, did it get typed in that way?
Well, we have, written.
And the second one, the key word is remaining properties. So the first one, the first supplementary, and, okay. The first agenda item, which is the one we're on now,
Mhm.
is the soft cost assessments. And they'll both be handled at the February 9th meeting, but they're being
Two agenda.
notified because they're being dealt with separately in terms of technical billing and assessment. So the first one is soft, the second one is the remaining hard costs of construction. So we're on the first one, which
No.
is soft.
Can I get a motion
Well, we,
to make that resolution?
it's the resolution, it's the first resolution.
It's just a point of clarification. Is it the motion to make the resolution, or is it the motion to
No,
actually
what-
hold the public hearing?
What Bruce said is it's the printed resolution that I sent out to everyone. It is not a motion, it's a resolution to set February 9th as the date to, well, it says,
I think I got it.
at which
Okay.
the owners, yeah, I know.
So word for word.
I will make the motion that the Old Saybrook WPCA Board accept the resolution as follows, that the WPCA hold a public hearing on February 9th, 2015 pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 7-250, at which the owners of properties in Phase 1 of the Decentralized Wastewater Management District Program have the opportunity to be heard concerning proposed supplementary assessments against their properties.
Second.
Anyone have any comment?
While we're on soft, so that I'm not mixing our metaphors and stuff.
Mhm.
You'll notice on the timeline, step 2, where we have to file a copy of the proposed assessments with the town clerk at least 10 days before the hearing, which makes that date it has to go town clerk on the 29th of January. What we would anticipate is that at the first meeting in January, we would prepare the memorandum that would go to the town clerk's office based on the data that I currently have from the last meeting. You can, at that point, change it or accept it as it is. If you accept it as it is, then you would just direct the staff to file it with the town clerk. If you change it in any way, then we have the 26th meeting in January to look at how you have changed it. And you must sink or swim on the 26th of January.
I don't think that's gonna work based on having to mail the
No,
benefit assessments out on January 23rd.
no, that's
Number
the.
3.
Number 3.
Yep.
No, you're right. That's why we have this piece of paper. No, so mentally, thank you, mentally, it is, what is it, 12th?
12.
The 12th of January, you need to be prepared to,
That's our next meeting.
fish or cut bait, as the saying goes.
Or have another meeting. We
Or,
could have
or
another
you,
meeting.
Have a special meeting. yeah.
or you would have to have a special meeting.
Uh, You know, I'd be prepared, but I certainly would like to look at the numbers a week before the 12th, you know, the week before that meeting, to kind of digest what we're gonna present, rather than try to make that decision.
Well,
Look at the
you'll
numbers that
get-
night and make a decision is gonna be tough. But then again, he might be out and he might have to do it, so, you know.
Well, I agree with your general,
Yeah,
the spirit of your comment.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But what's practical? How,
Yeah.
how soon can you?
Unless you decide otherwise this evening, and I really don't see it on the agenda, but whatever, then you are going to receive from staff what you determined at your 25th meeting. That is the number that will be on the supplementary assessment memorandum. You
Let me just-
have the total background
Right.
for that number, okay? So I can't give you anything more regarding that particular number. I have given you everything.
I don't have this thought entirely organized, so I apologize if it's somewhat incoherent. But it seems inconsistent, if you will, to say, we talked about having, needing a public hearing to have the discussion for this proposed assessment, yet we're having a checklist and a timeline that says that's the only answer.
Now,
Am I confused there?
what,
We can make changes after
you
the
can,
public
you can
hearing.
make changes at the public hearing. We just have to, everything starts with a public hearing.
Okay.
You can change anything you want all the way up to the public hearing, but know that if you change your mind at the public hearing, then we will have to set another public hearing,
Yeah, that-
and it will start all over again, and it is conceivable that that schedule would not accommodate state statute in order to send out billing in May. You really have to come to grips with what you want to do now.
Okay, having said that, I agree with what, says we want to get it right. So what I propose is that we have a special meeting a week before the 12th. Sometime, several days prior to the 12th, we have a special meeting to look at the numbers, preliminary numbers, and then on the 12th, go for it, fish or cut bait.
I'm not sure what different numbers we're gonna have.
You're
Well,
not
I'm
gonna,
not sure what the numbers.
We're not gonna get different numbers there.
You're-
Yeah, but I remember the
Unless we
numbers,
change the
and
approach.
I have to go back and
Well,
look.
I
We put
sent-
together those in an afternoon before he went on vacation, basically. I'm not saying that they're inaccurate
No, she
at all.
said
Bob, did you get this?
I
I
did get
sent that to
That has the
you.
fund
That
right
is,
on.
Within pennies, I think.
Yeah, it's right on.
that.
Okay, I mean, if everyone's
So-
comfortable with that, then
The only
fine.
thing that I would ask for is a summary of all the costs requested tonight, as well by a member of the public. Basically, a listing of those invoices, which we already have, but then a short description of what they were for. No, I think you have them, because they're.
I have them, it's just, they're not in a form that everybody seems to think they are. For example, I can pull the engineering costs spreadsheet, which, and this will cover for, say, Saybrook Acres 1, and it will cover 10 to 12 or more invoices. And I have them in that form. And I have them by category. But if there is no way, the way they were billed, that you can pull out what was extra. What you have to do is take the bottom line number and make an assumption and cut it in half. All the design, engineering designs fall into 4 or 5 different categories. And I certainly can list those out. But in the case of Saybrook Acres 1, 2, and 3, the only way that can be deducted from anything, or you're looking for a number to deduct, you'd have to take that final bottom line number and divide it in half, because there's absolutely no way within the billing methodology of Fuss and O'Neill that you could be any more detailed than that. But I certainly can take the engineering, and I can take every single one of those properties, those areas, and tell you exactly what the design costs gross, what the gross design costs were, and probably give you a couple different categories, or the larger of the categories. But that's basically the best I can do in detail on that.
Okay, so what I just heard as a citizen or a board member is that we're presenting costs that we can't really support. So, I mean, that's, in
No,
my
we
view.
can't. No.
I disagree with that.
No, I'm sorry, Bob.
We had
I can't
We
take,
have a description of those
We-
costs.
Okay, but if someone's gonna ask questions at a public hearing, which they're totally entitled to
Yes,
do,
but
then
we're
can
talking
we-
about before the public hearing. We're talking about a meeting before the public hearing.
the meeting is to prepare for the public hearing.
Right. So-
The meeting, so we have it right when we present to the public. What we do beforehand, we can discuss and change, but once we get to public meeting, we want to know what we have is right. I went through the last public meeting for soft costs,
Right.
and obviously, there were no supporting documents for what was being billed, so the whole thing fell apart. But when you go to a public meeting, what you're presenting to the public needs to be supported. And if you can't answer the questions, that's when you start getting into trouble. So, and I'm not questioning your work, I'm just saying,
no, Bob,
can we?
what
can
you're
we-
doing is
is-
you're not listening to me. And when I am telling you that
I'm a very good listener.
I have data, and it is in a particular form, and it is how it was presented to me by our engineers. I can do just so much with that, but
Okay.
I cannot drill it down to your property, or Barry's property, or George's property, and say, this is the engineering cost, the engineering cost for 2 plans, and those plans weren't used. I can't drill it down that far, but I can most certainly support engineering design services for Saybrook Acres 1, 2, 3, and all the rest of them. You're just asking me to drill down to something that I do not have the data to do so. Not my data.
Okay, let's Steve wants to say.
what you decided to do in taking this approach, it was known that there wasn't a one-for-one accounting.
Yeah, I know that.
That isn't the way it was,
Yeah, I know.
that isn't the way it was incurred, that is the way the program is managed. There is documentation. You decided as a board that you were gonna take certain costs, not all of it, only certain ones. And you were gonna come up with a reasonable amount those costs are all backed up, not per property, but they're all accounted for in terms of what that was expended for. It's a much smaller amount than was totally expended, and you decided that you were gonna come to an arbitrary, reasonable amount per property for certain costs. That was your approach. There is no more detail on it. That's your approach to this. Am I incorrect?
It's not arbitrary.
It's not arbitrary.
But
Not arbitrary.
what I'm looking for, I think, I have to agree with Bob on this, is a listing, which you already have,
Yes,
of each, I don't have it with me tonight, but it was a listing of the engineering costs by area.
well, see, what you had, in order to achieve what you were all looking for, you were all interested in what you weren't gonna pay, as opposed to what you were, I mean, in terms of presentation. So the pieces of paper that I prepared for you address the specific question you asked. What you now need is the listing of what's left, and it wasn't on that piece of paper, and it can be done. I am just saying
Right. It's
that
that
we
listing.
can drill down just so far, and we can't drill down any further, and I will
Right.
do
We have-
that
We have the
immediately.
amounts,
Yep,
we already know what they are, because that's what generated the numbers.
that's right.
That list of amounts is basically an engineering cost of each contract area.
Yes,
All I'm looking for is one or two lines next to that list of what was in those engineering costs, that's all.
yes,
That-
that we can do. If you
That's all.
wanna go
I think
further
if we
than
saw
that, we
that
can.
prior to, I mean, if we saw that the next week to 10 days, then I think on the 12th of January, I'm ready to
I'm
go.
ready.
That's all I need.
That's
I
fine.
think that's just
Yeah.
some categorical descriptions.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
that's all about-
that I have, but to take it it cannot be drilled down any
No,
further
we
than that.
understand that, because it was, like, it was not done property by property. This was not something that we got a quote for a property address and a
That's
cost.
right.
It was done by in groups, and that's how we arrived at this number, which is not arbitrary. We arrived at this number by
In the sense
a
of
group
what you
and
decided to
then
include.
distributed over all properties.
That's right.
And that's all I'm looking for.
And that's
That's
fine.
what I'm looking for too. My biggest concern is we get to the public hearing, someone asks a question, and we don't have an answer. Can't ever begin to try to answer the question. If we have the right information, we can answer all the questions, and I don't have a problem speaking for the board, and I think other people don't either, so. But we gotta have the information, so that we're confident in what we present.
And that's fine. I
Okay.
just think that
That's all we're
there's,
asking.
there has been a constant undercurrent that there's somehow I can provide data that I cannot provide. It's not my data, it's the engineering firm, and it's how they build and how they presented the data that we have. And I've organized it.
Water over the dam, we'll do better next year.
You're projecting the engineer's gonna do something that we don't know. So I agree with you basically, but I'm not sure that it'll happen. Because this, again, it's not our data. We're getting data from others.
Okay, well, the sooner we can see this
I will have it
summary
to-
description, then the sooner we can raise.
I
more
will have
questions.
it to all of you by the end of the week, and if somebody does not receive it by Friday, please let me know, because we did in fact send out all the minutes, and God only knows where well, that's the first time in what, 4 or 5 years that
Never
we've,
enough.
they've gone someplace.
Is it the email account of choice?
It could
That's
have
what
been a
happened.
problem, there have been some problems recently with the town email accounts, and it could have, who knows? But if you don't get it by the end of the week, please drop me an email and let me know.
Good. All right.
I have a further comment or question, and what I was trying to allude to a moment ago is the checklist is very tight, and by design, I understand that, you know, that's the purpose for it. But there's very little time to consider what we hear at the public hearing, or to have a meeting to review that information and how it applies to the checklist and the action we're taking. And that's, I guess, how do we, I think we owe it to our citizens to listen and to consider what they're saying. So how do we do that in this checklist?
You just simply have to have another public hearing. And you would have to have another public hearing probably no more than 2 weeks after, 2 weeks after the 9th of February. You couldn't go past.
Maybe I didn't say that clearly. We're gonna have a public hearing, that's.
Yes, but if you decide not to levy a benefit assessment at that public hearing, then you can levy the public assessment, the benefit assessment, oh God, at the first meeting in February. I have to look and see what that date is. And you're still fine with the check line, it just changes a little bit, but you're still getting to the dates at the end of March.
Okay.
If you decide at the public hearing that you want to make a wholesale change, then you will have to determine what that change is, and this process will have to start all over again, and it will need to be completed, I believe, I'll have to look at the calendar, but I believe by the end of February. So what you have to do is, it would have to be 10, 12 days after the 9th. You'd have to have a special meeting immediately. You'd have to call for a public hearing immediately. Have to go through this whole thing and everything would slide. The minute that you get out of the month of February, then the calendar will not allow us to bill in May, and that means that we will not be able to bill until November, and I do not believe the town fathers would look kindly upon that.
I agree, and I'm voicing it today so that we have the option, we have an idea of what we need to accomplish or be prepared to take action on, you know, as we listen to the public hearing and hear the public comments. If we have to make a decision at the public hearing or during that process, on that particular date, if we don't think about it in advance, it's gonna be very difficult to do it on the fly. And that's the purpose of my comment.
You asking if there is an option for the board to take a week or two to consider?
No,
the comments?
that is
No,
not
it's
enough.
not at all. It's, if we decide that, if we hear comments and enough of us agree that some different number should be considered, how do we decide what that number is and get that into the process?
You can call a special meeting of the board to discuss that. It would have to be very quickly.
Right. And that's why I'm making it now.
And then, if after discussion, no change was made, then it would simply be a vote on the board at that special meeting to levy that particular benefit assessment. If a change was made, then what you would immediately have to do is calculate when the public hearing would be, the next one. and then we would just run a timeline for that. There is the smallest margin.
Well, what happened the last time was that we had the public hearing and then we had a discussion of the board about what we heard at the meeting, immediately following the hearing.
Okay.
And after that discussion, the board decided to just accept
Okay.
the assessments.
All right, so
The
I
board did not-
was not privy to that.
Well, that, you've got to also understand that at this public hearing, you're going to have two assessments. One is going to be for hard costs, for which there should be no discussion. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, which we really didn't have much of
Okay.
a discussion the first time around.
So that will, so the issue, if there is one, will be for soft costs. And so you can, in fact, levy the hard costs of construction benefit assessments at the public hearing, and then call for a special meeting. Not altogether sure how.
Yeah, and I understand his question, and I want to know what the options are. My preference is to go prepared, be confident in what we're presenting, and I don't think if we do it right, we can answer the questions. This is gonna fly through, this is not gonna be a big issue. That's my opinion.
As long as we have the answers.
As long as we have the answers, yes. If we don't have the answers, we're stand up there and be stupid, then I can't predict what's gonna happen. But if we have the answers, we understand the numbers that we're presenting, and we can back them up, this will fly through, this will not be a problem.
Yeah. Them pigs gonna fly.
All right, is there any
I
other
do.
discussion? We have a resolution.
You have a motion to accept the resolution, right?
That first one, it was already made.
Yeah, and seconded, yeah, so we, call the vote, please. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Now we have a resolution to.
All right, I'll make a motion that the Saybrook Water Pollution Control Authority Board accept the resolution that reads that the WPCA hold a public hearing on February 9th, 2015 pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 7-250, at which the owners of remaining properties in Phase 1 of the Decentralized Wastewater Management District Program have the opportunity to be heard concerning proposed hard construction cost assessments against their properties.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, does anyone have any, are we gonna have, so we're not having this public hearing right now
For,
for the upgrade standards?
I suggested that we just postpone it or table it till the next meeting.
Does anyone have any comments on it?
Just postpone it.
Any old business? No? Okay, the contract service agreements?
We have our 3 contracts that will terminate at the end of December with regard to our field staff. 2 of them are independent contractor agreements, and they are for site inspectors. One is for Scott Bringer. All 3 contracts will now be constructed as at-will contracts, and they will not have time frame associated with them. So, just wanted you to realize that about.
So you don't have to do this again next year?
We won't. The only other change is with regard to the site inspectors, both Matt Fitlick and Scott Brainerd, has to do with slight increases in salary. Scott has not had, this would have been the third year he did not get any kind of increase. He's done a great job. He's a really valuable asset in terms of dealing with revenue. He's on the front line, and it's a really critical position that works well for what we've been able to accomplish. Matt Fitlick has been here about a year. He got a lesser raise, and he does have a CDL license, which qualifies him to drive the truck with the trailer. And that's a skill and an asset that we need. So their job descriptions, as mentioned, have not changed. So those are presented to you just for approval for those changes. We have a personal services agreement with Jim Vinoli, who has been with us more than a year, but for a year he's been acting site manager. Jim's an engineer with a background in construction management. He's been very valuable to us and gone way beyond just coordinating events downstairs. So he's already contributed a great deal that he was not obligated to do under his past contract. So we kind of formalized his contribution with this contract and stated him as the site manager. There's an increase in salary. And the other change here is that he requested and negotiated with us holidays and 2 weeks vacation, which Carl has agreed to in terms of this contract. His job description was tweaked a little bit to reflect what he's currently contributing. All of it is still 100% Cleaner Water Fund reimbursable. So those are the changes in the contract.
It needs full-time.
Well, it reads for the hours worked in a week.
Good.
Okay, can I have a motion to authorize me to sign these personal contract agreements?
Well, do you want us to accept the changes and then authorize also to?
You just need to
sign?
approve the contracts as they are. All three have read them and discussed it with them, and the particular individuals have signed them.
Did we get to review the contracts? Did we get to see the
They
contracts?
were emailed out.
Yeah.
I didn't get them.
They're with the minutes.
I didn't
My
get the minutes either. I
No, they
downloaded
weren't
my
with the
minutes.
'cause
No, I know, I did
got
get them.
You did get them, I
I
didn't.
did get those.
Yes, they
I
were
got it.
sent out,
those
everybody got
contracts.
them. They're, I think
Yeah,
pass
we got
those
them.
around, those are signed originals.
If I make, by pronouncing it correctly, I make a motion that we approve the new contracts for the following: Scott Brainerd, Matt Pellerin, and Jim
Pitland.
Pitland. Pitland, thank you, and Jim Vinoli. Their new contracts.
And authorize the chairman to sign.
Then authorize the chairman to sign.
Just keep going ahead.
Second.
Did you see?
Yeah. There you go.
Just reviewing, does anyone have any comment on this?
Steve presented the changes that I saw. That's okay to me.
What was Scott's pay rate before the $40 that you're proposing?
It was 35. So is Matt's.
So over the winter, are these guys working or not working?
They're currently working, they don't work 40 hours every week. It's meant to be a flexible contract depending on the workload.
Okay, I do have one question that I don't see in the contract. Is there any provision that these people need to follow OSHA guidelines when they're on site in terms of wearing the proper safety gear and helmets and that and so forth?
They were all required to take the 10-hour class, and they are required to wear their helmets and their appropriate gear.
It's
They're
not quite what I
required to,
asked.
they're required to.
They're required to. But it's not in the contract, doesn't say anything in the contract about that.
Well, they agree to,
They agree to do it,
abide-
but all I'm saying
no,
is.
abide, to town policies.
Right, right.
So,
Which I think does require that they wear
Yeah.
approved safety gear when they're on site. And I observed it many times not doing that, that's what I'm
Yes,
saying.
that's right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So did you.
Yep, you're right.
Okay. So that's my last comment.
Okay, but I mean, it doesn't have to be in here to enforce it.
Well, I'm not gonna, I
Is
would
that
say
what you're
the next
saying?
contact that we write, we probably should include that, that right in the contract. That the attended,
I don't agree that that would make any difference in their compliance.
it may not, but it's a.
What that requires is a construction inspector to go out and look at the work being performed and call out those deficiencies and have them corrected on site. That's what you're asking for. That's what I do on a
No,
professional basis.
no, that's not what I'm asking for. I'm
Well,
asking that
that's-
they.
that's how it's solved.
That you can do that in a contract. I didn't just get off the banana boat
No,
here. You can do that in a
You can
contract.
put it in a contract. That
Yeah,
doesn't mean everybody do it.
and then it takes the responsibility away from us. You know,
No, it
No,
never
it
does.
well, I know, it
Responsibility
never does.
resides
I know,
with
we
the town.
still are responsible, but less.
If our staff is not, if our site manager, is that who would enforce those rules?
Supervise, yeah.
Supervise that, if they're not doing it, and they're not wearing appropriate, then that person needs to have a serious discussion about the way they're doing the job, or they need to do a different job. You know,
Correct.
that's flat out what we have to ask for.
Steve, perhaps, the board is asking you to talk to your people.
I'll bring it up.
Okay, next staff meeting, thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And may I have a motion to adjourn?
So make a motion, we adjourn our meeting at 8:51 PM.
That would be nice.
May I have a second? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Did you second that?